once again, thank you all so much for being here. This is a really unique occasion. This is not something that we've done before, but we think it's going to be really insightful and helpful for this group, this community of parents, college squash parents and junior parents who are interested in what happens in college squash. My name is David Poolman. I'm the executive director and lead commissioner of the College Squash Association. And I'm joined today by 4 great panelists who are going to share some really valuable insight with all of you. So first, I'll start off. I just want to give a shout out to start with Simone Winston. Simone has a son, Jack, who plays at Bowdoin College currently. Simone is also currently one of our co-chairs of our parent advisory committee and has helped drive initiatives like this and provide some great insight to us about areas where there might be a void of information or things that we can talk about from the governing body perspective that will help all of you. So thank you, Simone, for helping organize and pushing us along, and thanks for being here. Next, I want to introduce John Sirocco. John comes to us from the Philadelphia area. His daughter, Lily, just graduated from Amherst College, so he has a 4-year perspective of college squash as a parent. And John and I went to the same college, although slightly farther apart in years. So it's always nice to connect with John. John, thanks for being here. And next, we have Andy Orr. Andy's, as I said, our switch hitter.
Joined the meeting.
Night of a World Series game. Andy has 2 sons playing college squash. Maxwell is at Yale currently, and his son Alexander just started at the Naval Academy this fall. So thank you all for being our parent representatives here on the call today. And then last, but certainly not least, Coach Paul Assaiante from Trinity College. Certainly a legend in our game. He's a college squash Hall of Famer. I'm sure he's in a lot more Hall of Fames based on his accolades and records at Trinity. We're very lucky to have Paul. He's been doing quite a bit of talking to parents these days about their experience dealing with their kids in college, and he and I talk a lot, and he just provides some great insight in this space. So I'm really grateful to have Paul here as well.
Thank you.
Before I begin, I do want to make one other quick push. It's something that we're talking about going through this year. College squash is coming upon its 100th anniversary this spring. And we'll be having a big celebration around that on the weekend of the individuals and doubles championships. So March 4th, 2023, mark your calendars. Please come join us. We're going to have a big centennial party at the Specter Center down in Philadelphia. And we hope you all can join us. It'll be great to have you there. More information to come on that. We have some info on our website currently, but if you're interested, please check it out. One other housekeeping item. I hope this is not a disappointment. We're not going to talk too much tonight about the recruiting side of things. This is really for parents who have players in college squash right now. If you're here or you're looking for more information about college squash recruiting, we have great resources for you on our website. That was another area that our parent advisory committee helped kind of fine tune and provide some great feedback on what we should have in that space. So please visit our website. We have videos, PowerPoint decks, and lots of other things to check out. But without further ado, we're going to talk a little bit about what new parents and families of college squash players should know. So I'll jump right in to start out with, and this is really for our 3 parents. Simone, maybe I'll start with you. We'll go with an easy one, I think. As parents, are you invited to coaches generally? Are they happy to have you at events? What is your attendance expectations? And also when you're there, how are you expected to behave? What is that like?
Well, luckily, yes. Jack's coach, Theo Woodward at Bowdoin, very much likes having the parents participate. During Parents Weekend, which we just had 2 weeks ago, they had a special squash team potluck lunch where parents got to know each other, especially obviously the freshman parents. Those of us who are return parents had that familiarity from last year and previous years, but it was a great opportunity for us to get to know each other and meet the kids a little bit off the court if we didn't already know them. My observation from last year being Jack's first year, there was still some hesitation with COVID as far as parents traveling, and some schools were more restrictive as to attendance by non-players and, with vaccination requirements and such. So I think last year was still probably not the norm of what I hope that we will have this year. Our schedule was a little bit abbreviated and there were definitely some last minute cancellations. But as a general rule, certainly parents felt very welcome. And I think most of the parents were very excited to be supporting their girls and boys on the teams and cheering on the teams. As far as I can only speak for my son, I am asked to stand back at a safe distance so that I can't make too much eye contact or facial gestures. And probably once a match, I'm allowed to say, "Go Jack" or "Go Bowden." And that's about my limitation. And I'm try to be respectful of that so I won't get asked not to come back the next time.
Thanks. John, why don't you, if you could, pick up that string a little bit as a parent of a 4-year player. What was it like getting to know the other parents? What are the expectations as far as interacting with parents?
Join the meeting.
Players?
Well, we had a pretty good experience over the 4 years our daughter played at Amherst of getting a good transition from year to year via the captain's parents. Took that role very seriously and got very much involved well before the season started with email lists and emails out to all the parents, including incoming parents, about what the year would look like, when and where we would have social events, which we tried to do around Pioneer Valley, which was a Amherst related event. I'm not sure it's going to occur this year and may be part of history now, but there would be a team dinner for both the men's and the women's team at that time on campus, and then doing something around NESCAC championships, also doing something around CSA championships. And we had a very good, as I said, very good transition that was really keyed by the captain's parents figuring out the year and being in constant communication with people. It's really one of the, I think, the nicest parts of having a child playing college squash is the ability to meet and spend time with the other parents, not only on your own child's team, but on you have a girl playing, the parents of the boys, and vice versa. It's a really great aspect of it. And we did a lot of traveling to matches. Our expectation, just as a family, was that if there was a match, we were going to try to be there. Obviously, not everyone can do that in terms of schedule, but we definitely saw a lot of matches. It was a fun part of it. And, with a little bit more of end of tournament play now, end of season play now coming down to the Philadelphia area, I think that's also great place to kind of coalesce. It'll be interesting to see as both men and women are playing the CSAs here in Philadelphia this year.
Great. And Andy, maybe you can provide some insight a little bit on the communications you receive from coaches and how you feel like they balance that in your experience. You have 2 boys playing, having different experiences. What has it been like communicating to coaches? Are they clear about what they're looking for from their parent community?
Yeah, I would echo what John just said, that a lot is sort of led by the captain's parents in terms of, I guess for us, it's funny, both teams, the parents of the captain organizes sort of who will be able to go to matches and bring snacks for the team. So that's one thing that they like to get set up early on. The coaches are both Tyler Osborne at the Naval Academy and Lin Liang at Yale are great in terms of communicating sort of how the season's going, what they expect from the kids. and that they would love us to attend as many matches as possible. Now, we were, even though I have two kids and one's in his second year now and for sports and one's just starting, we have very little actual experience because of COVID. Yale was pretty much closed last year to outside visitors. So we were lucky to be able to go to the CSAs in Philadelphia, and the individuals and also the teams were at Penn. So those were our two big events last year. But this year is going to be a lot different. And, being in the Philadelphia area, we're lucky that Annapolis is only a couple hours to our south and New Haven's only about 3 hours to our north. So we're sort of looking at that whole year-long schedule and figuring out which matches make sense. And in terms of sort of engagement with the team, this weekend at the Ivy scrimmages, we have a team dinner with all on the Yale men's side with all the parents, which is going to be great. And then the following weekend, Navy has a 5-match round robin in Annapolis, and we're having a team dinner that night. So 2 weekends in a row, we'll be out of town and having team dinners, meeting all the parents, and really get to know the players as well off the court, as Simone said. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Great. So I'm picking up on a theme of food, snacks, and team dinners, and but not getting too involved. That step back, not being too loud. So that's a pretty good summation. Paul, can you kind of flip the script a little bit and tell us, your experience talking to parents, and you obviously know a lot of the college coaches, your peers, and what the general sentiment is around communication with parents and their expectations for when they come to matches.
Well, as David said, I'm the one on the other side of the fence of this call today, and I've been bumping in and out of college coaching for 45 years, and I've seen a tremendous amount of change. And the core group that I've been speaking to recently are you all, and how I can help you let go to some extent and allow us to do our jobs. And we obviously love having the parents come. I thought Simone, said it beautifully from a distance, certainly being physically present, but a bit removed. It's very, very hard as a parent. You see your child get a call that maybe you don't agree with, or, why is, Johnny not playing today? Those are all very tough and emotional kinds of things, but it's critically important, as through this college age, not from the juniors, but through the college age, we're the last stop before they go on to life. And the young student athletes need to now learn to advocate for themselves. They need to learn how to discuss things with us. And the lessons that they learn will not be measured in a match, in a week, in a season. The lessons that they will learn from us, we will know about 10 years later when they come back to campus and say, wow, coach, what a jerk I was, or whatever it is. Thank you for helping guide me through. And so I guess my last comment here is, I will speak to any parent, anytime, about anything that has nothing to do with squash.
Yeah, I completely agree with Paul. It's so different. It is about the team and not just your child. And I tend to just roam around looking at lots of matches. I'm not even really focused on my child that much. And it's a completely different atmosphere. And I don't talk to the coaches about squash really at all. Or my sons, and the great thing is you don't have to fill up their water bottle or do anything for them, because they're now on their own, they're independent, and they're with their team and their support system, and you're really just there to watch from a distance.
That's a great sort of segue to one of our next topics, which is the differences between college squash and junior squash. What similar, Andy sort of touched on it and took us off on a great start. Can you talk a little further about the differences that you've experienced so far? What stands out to you, and what's comfortable, what's uncomfortable, things like that?
Sure. Well, I found that, Jack's last year of high school, he graduated in 2020, right during the shutdown. And so, but he was really able to have his high school years full of tournaments, and we as a family would traveled often. And so, which certainly we got to know Andy and Elizabeth very well, along with a lot of other parents, which we were so lucky to do. And, there definitely is, as Coach Assaiante mentioned, definitely a more hands-on perspective with parents in those junior years, because you're obviously starting in probably middle school or so, going traveling, and the kids really need more guidance with when they're eating and when they're sleeping, and making sure that they don't hopefully by college they're not maybe stomping their foot when they shouldn't be during a bad call, and taking a breath and letting it go and moving on to the next point. And certainly by the college days, it's not appreciated in any way for a parent to be interjecting their opinion, nor should it be. And I think the kids do have to advocate for themselves and feel good about their work ethic, and how they're participating on the team, and how they're supporting their teammates, and how they're taking care of themselves as a player, as a student, as an athlete. So I think, we're lucky enough to also be able to go watch the majority of Jack's matches and cheer them on, but it's literally to go and be supportive and give him a hug at the end and encourage the team and bring snacks. And other than that, keep our thoughts to ourselves.
Yeah, in high school, you kind of had this dichotomy between junior squash, that's its own separate universe. And then if you're in a place like Philadelphia or perhaps Boston, you also have that other parallel world of high school squash. And that can create some, I'll just say, unusual dynamics, tensions between the two. Because you're kind of competing in the junior squash world for yourself, thinking ahead about how that might lead, what it might lead to in terms of college squash. And you're playing on a high school team, but still, it's nice for the team to win, but you still have that more individualized focus out there. And then you get to college, it's college squash. It's so much fun to kind of have that tension move to the background, and everything's about the team. Everything is about supporting the other players. Everything is about the combination of the athletic aspects of being on a team, but also the social and learning aspects, the group dynamic aspects of being on the team. And as a parent, if you can realize things are changing and realize that you can really enjoy that different type of environment, it's an awful lot of fun. It's very rewarding, and was a great part of our experience as being squash parents in college. It was, I thought, as I said, I think it was a very rewarding experience, and it's nice to say there's no I in team and really mean it for 4 years.
I've heard it described as a breath of fresh air after the junior squash experience. Would you say that's accurate? It sounds like it was for John.
Yeah, I think it's a big difference, and I think our daughter, who I think had a pretty good balanced view of junior squash and what it did and didn't mean, and high school squash, and playing in a competitive environment in the Interact League here in Philadelphia. But you get to college, and it's just a whole different platform, and one that is, if I can use the phrase, I think it's liberating. I think it's liberating for the kids. I also think it's liberating for the parents.
It's encouraging to hear from my perspective. I'm very glad about that. Paul, can you talk a little bit about the life skills? We were talking to John a little bit about, Lily is graduated onto the real world. I mean, what do you focus on with your players to kind of help them out and make them real citizens on campus and your community, so that when they go off, you talked about 10 years down the road finding out what it really meant. How do you set them up for that?
We really, first of all, I have to say that the three people on this call are remarkable and properly prioritized from my perspective. And it is a breath of fresh air. I will tell you, that is not what we're seeing on this side of the computer. And I just have to be honest, because that's what I've been asked to do. And, in terms of what we're doing with our youngsters here, our young men and women, we're trying to help them understand that if they happen to be a good squash player, that doesn't make them better than anybody else on campus, that there are people here that are actually quite good at other things, and to try to help them understand that there needs to be a level of balance and humility and appreciation for other things. We very much focus on that. We try to teach them some of the simple life lessons that you need to learn to communicate with your peers and your professors and your coaches in a respectful way, being able to see both sides of the coin. You don't have to be right all the time. Although at this age, they really want to be right all the time. And that's part of the process. But really the big thing is, I really, really want to help them understand the value and the beauty and the necessity of failure. We will do anything to protect our children from experiencing that. In the name of love, we can't help ourselves. And in many ways, we're destroying an entire generation of young people. And it's important that they learn that losing is the playground of success. You have to skin your knee. You have to fail, because life is hard. And, as John mentioned, his daughter is now out in the real world. Life is hard. And the most important quality to life success is resilience. And you cannot be resilient if you don't fail. And so that is the beautiful moment. We try to create scenarios in practice where they fail, where they don't make it all the way. And what did that mean? How did that happen? Did we not prepare correctly? Did we not strategize? Did we not make in-game adjustments? Is emotion too much of a part of our process here? Just learning to analyze what just happened, learn from what just happened, and be resilient on the other side. And that is our playground here.
I think that's really apt, and another good segue to kind of our next subject, which is health and wellness. It's such a, especially coming out of the pandemic, it's such a critical part of everything that I think our coaches are doing on campus. It's really top of mind right now, within the squash community, college squash in particular, but really college sports writ large. Mental health is a key piece of everything that athletic departments are doing these days to prepare their student athletes for the rigors of college and everything that entails. Our first seminar that we had which was made up of coaches and was geared towards players. The coaches talked about kind of the three prongs of college life: their academics, their athletics, and their social life, and trying to find a balance between those three as best as possible. But it's not always easy, and there are challenges. So any of the parents, if you want to jump in, how can you be supportive? How have you been supportive from a mental health or health and wellness perspective to your kids, and how you think others can approach it as well as they start to transition to college squash?
So I'll jump in here, and it follows on what Paul said about failure, because when kids get to college and they're on their own, you're not there, and hopefully you weren't there that much as they got older in high school, but to help them with that transition. But they're going to have to learn how to make trade-offs. They're going to have too much to do, between academics, athletics, social life, other extracurriculars. They can't do it all, so they're going to fail. And we have a family story. A nephew of mine went to UCLA and he rode there, and he told us that he had decided, he could not be a good student on the crew team, have a girlfriend, and join a frat. He could only do 2 out of the 4. And he made the choice. And so he didn't have a girlfriend, and he wasn't in a frat for a while. And then I think he may have quit sports and gotten a girlfriend, but he realized at a pretty young age about that trade-off. And Maxwell at Yale just had pretty recently, he texted me, I'm in trouble, or we were talking about something else, and he said, I'm in trouble. I'm like, what do you mean you're in trouble? He's like, well, I have a paper due and an exam, and I'm just not going to do as well as I should have. And I said, well, you're going to do the best you can. And, maybe you can look back, sort of what Paul was saying about analyzing it. How did you get yourself in this situation? Did you make some poor decisions, a week ago? Or is it just the fact that, you're being pulled and spread thin and you can't be 110% for everything? So, that's part of growing up. And that is probably the hardest thing they face, is that they will have, usually a lot of these kids that play squash were also very good students, come from smaller schools, and they're big fish in their high school, and they come to big schools where there's tons of really smart, accomplished people in all areas of their lives. And you can't be the best at everything, and they're not used to that. They're not used to getting their first B or whatever it is, or losing squash matches, where you were, it's like when I look at college sports, most of those kids were captains in their high school, and a lot of them aren't even starting in whatever sport it is when they get to college. So you're going from the small pool to the big one. So it's a tough transition. So in terms of support on mental health, we like to say moderation and figuring out, what's the important thing to is how to spend your time, and making good choices, and learning from bad choices, or just what's happening as you get older.
It's great insight, Andy. And Simone, John, anything to add?
I would agree. I think that time management is really, I think, to be fair, junior squash, and if you were at that, gold and JCT level where you were probably traveling a bit and still had school on Monday morning when you had a squash match out of state on Sunday afternoon, maybe allowed some of these young people to learn a little bit about time management. But to be fair, they probably did have some parent support and reminders, and not letting them, draw outside of the lines too much. But so I think that that time management and realizing your limitations, and that you can't do everything. And there'll be times, some weekends where, if you've got squash matches coming up that week, and as well as an exam or papers due or whatever, that maybe that's just not the weekend that you can be as social as you might like in the off season. I know for Jack, he's always been very concerned, and not concerned isn't the right word, but focused on his health and his sleep and his diet, and making sure he's taking proper care of himself. And I think in our family, that's always been a priority, for whatever reasons. And so I think that he's been able to carry that on in school, and making sure he's getting enough sleep and eating properly and eating enough has definitely been something that that I remind him of, and that he's very conscientious about. And I think that becomes even more important when you have so much to do in the course of a week with all of the commitments that these young people have.
It's a little bit like the iceberg when you're you're a parent of a college squash player and you're showing up at matches. You're kind of just seeing the tip of the iceberg. A lot's going on during the week, lots going on in the interaction between the players and the coaches, the players and the assistant coaches, players and captains, players and players, and then players and people who don't even know what squash is. So you show up for a match on Saturday, a lot's gone on that week. You're kind of just getting to see the fun part, the very tip of the iceberg. In contrast, during high school and junior squash, you're seeing a lot more of what goes into it. And you have much more of an ability, for good or bad, to influence what's going into it. And part of enjoying college squash and enjoying your son or daughter play college squash is kind of that experience of letting go and being really a spectator in the true sense. When you're high school squash, you kind of almost feel like you're trying to put body English on everything that happens: the training sessions, the high school matches, the junior squash matches. Because it's all happening right in front of you, and you go home at night with the player, right? So that's a lot different from traveling a couple 100 miles, showing up at a college squash match, watching the match, maybe having a dinner with the team or other parents, and then going back to your real life. And it's if you can enjoy that difference, it's a great experience.
Coach, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could, I made a facetious comment before about wanting to speak to parents about anything but squash. It takes a village. And, when we were growing up, everybody said, oh, that was the best 4 years of my life. That's not the case anymore. It's the pressures, the speed, this damn thing. It's changed everything. And so I encourage you to communicate with the coach. The coach is there every day. We can see when there's the beginnings of they don't seem quite right. They seem a little down. They're less communicative. They're losing weight rapidly. They're isolating from their peers. You'll hear things when you speak to your child. I encourage you to speak to the coaches about this topic. I think David has done a brilliant job and with the CSA governance to deal with mental health issues on campus. There are so many resources on campus today. I don't think Trinity is unusual that 47% of the student body is in some form of counseling. And we need to get out in front of it, because if we don't observe from both sides of the coin that there's a change, then the train gets too far down the tracks. And so I really encourage you to develop a relationship with the coach. Say, look, we have the same goal. We both want our child to have a positive college experience and move on into life. If you see things, if I see things, let's talk. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the student athlete knowing that you are in fact communicating, because then they know that you both care and they'll feel more comfortable in that communication. But I think the mental health thing, it's unbelievable right now. They're just under so much pressure. I said to one of my players today, perfection is the enemy of the good. You're trying to be perfect in everything. I'm the only one perfect in here. You got to lighten up a little bit on yourself. So yeah, I think this is a big issue.
Yeah, it really is huge. And I think Andy is right. So many of our players are really well accomplished in so many different ways, and they're used to being the top of something, of whatever they're doing. And coming to college, they're going to run into lots of other people who are also the top of a lot of things that they were doing, and going from being a big fish or a successful fish into a pool with lots of other successful fish can be overwhelming. And so, Paul mentioned this. Every one of our campuses has resources that you should encourage your student athletes to look into, even before something goes wrong, as Paul said, before the train goes too far down the tracks. Find out where the counseling and psych services offices are on campus. Find the number. All of this information I know is available. Then the schools make it available from the get-go in freshman orientation. It's all there. A lot of it goes, the students are getting so much information so quickly that a lot of it goes in one ear and out the other, but don't let them lose that, that magnet that has the, the key numbers on campus, or the agenda, or the packet that has the key numbers, because that could come in handy at any moment. And it's just, we have the resources, and you have an extra layer of support with the coaches. As John said, the head coach, the assistant coach, the captains, everyone's looking out for everyone else's well-being. We know we're on high alert that now is as tough a time as any to deal with this stuff. So you should be mindful as parents, and you should make sure that your students are mindful of it as well.
It's also, squash can be a great outlet for stress and some of those, challenges they have that, now, maybe some think they're going to play pro, but for the most part, college squash is it. And they should really just be there for the fun and the camaraderie of the team. And so many of the coaches I've talked to, and the kids, it's less about the squash skill and how well they do. I mean, there are definitely some schools that want to win the big stuff, but for the most part, it's about having a bunch of great men and women as friends and people to spend time with. And you hear these kids say that was the one time of the day when I could be, out of the stress and in the zone and just hitting a ball against a wall. Like, what's tough about that? So hopefully squash might have been a stressor when they're in high school, but hopefully at this point, it's the opposite of that. And it's a relief valve for them.
I made a note. I also want to point out, it's not all doom and gloom. John's daughter just went off and graduated and has a job in the real world. There are resources on campus to help propel your students into the future post college as well. These colleges and universities are incredible. The staffs they have are incredible. I always say, the list of schools that play college squash is one of the most impressive lists, top to bottom, that I can find in the college sports world. And the resources that are out there are phenomenal for our student athletes. And so you should also encourage them to find the writing center, the career services office, anywhere that's going to help propel them into the future, because and the coaches and your parents want them to succeed in that way as well. And it's just that all of those things are so critical, and they just come up at different points along the way. Go ahead, Paul.
So when we recruit these young people, we begin to develop a relationship with them and you, and then we try to help them negotiate these 4 or so years. Most of us then are very focused on helping them get their first job. We all know that their first job won't be their last job, but at least we help them get into their foot in the door. And the one thing I would say is, athletics is a passion play. Alums and the ex-parents are so engaged with what happened, and so encourage your student athletes to speak to the coaches, because we're going to know a ton of alumni out there who have been very successful in life, and those alums really want to help. My daughter graduated from Trinity. There's nothing extraordinary about my daughter, nothing, but using the Trinity College connections today, at 37 years old, she is the director of strategy and marketing for Wharton Admission. And she got to that place, not in a linear way, but all the way using Trinity connections.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So just one last point. These parents that are on our panel have been interacting with college squash and US squash content for a long time. I'm curious, what resources are out there that you have used to connect with your teams, connect with college squash, and make you feel like part of this community, and has really helped you with your transition?
Well, I can say selfishly, we love during the squash season looking up Jack's former competitors, when oftentimes we may or may not be able to play against them in a season. And it's really exciting to even get on Club Locker and cheer on other teams and support other players. You know, we've been lucky enough to meet so many great other young people and families. And I feel like college squash has been a great way for us to continue those relationships, even if from a bit afar. I'm really excited to see that college squash now has resources that that speak specifically to recruiting and what that process looks like and what to expect. There was a little bit less of that when we were going through it, and I think, you know, having only one of my 4 children, he's the youngest, be a student athlete at all, our processes for the others were very different. So it's nice to see that US squash and college squash are seeing that as a vital part of a family's and a student's journey. It's really nice to see parents involved and speaking to each other on platforms and formats like this, and even getting to this point, hearing from people from different schools and different experiences, slightly different ages. You know, personally for me and for our family, this has really been very helpful.
Andy, John, what do you sort of tap into to connect to the college squash world or with your teams?
Well, I'm still, you know, the nice thing about college, the world of college squash, is that it's, as Simone said, it's a very small world, and most teams are composed of competitors who not only do you know, but you know them well, you like them, you know their parents, you like their parents. I mean, it's there's a very pleasant social aspect to squash at the college level that is probably a little bit different than almost any other sport played in college, I would wager. And if that appeals to you, you'll get a good dose of that by being a squash parent in college. My wife and I are still attending the high school matches of the school where our daughter went, and watching Interact Squash here in Philadelphia very closely, and talking to parents about what their sons or daughters are thinking about in terms of college. And it's a fun way to keep involved. It's a fun way to be involved in what you can see as a very nice pipeline of great athletes, great students, great families, all gravitating towards college squash. So it's a fun thing for us to have been involved with over the years, and continue to be involved in college squash. David mentioned our mutual alma mater. I'll be at our alumni match this Saturday, and stay in touch with all of those kids also as they go on. So it's been a very enjoyable, very rewarding universe to be part of.
Yep, I would just say I love cruising the websites and reading the previews of the upcoming matches on CSA, reading about the results afterwards on Club Locker, watching the live scores from, you know, 2 colleges I have no connection to, but I know some of the players there. And you know, you can sort of read between the line what's happening during those matches sometimes, or sometimes you can't because of the way the technology works. You'll see nothing for 5 minutes and you're worried there's an injury, and then you'll see that they just never finished scoring and the match was done. But so it's a little bit of mystery involved too, but it's definitely fun to keep track, or to continue following kids that you met and parents that you met, and then you meet up at the team championships or the individuals at the end of the year, and it's like one big party. It's really fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Andy. Little plug for CSA. You know, CSA website is csasquash.com. There are links to all of our social media platforms, which are active on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, if you're interested. There's also a link directly to the Club Locker season. All of our matches are are logged on Club Locker, and our coaches and fortunately our schools have adopted a lot of the live scoring technology, which is much more accessible these days. So you can see the scores happening in real time, almost real time. As Andy said, we have to give a pass to, some of our a lot of times the players are the ones who are entering the scores, and when they get a little excited, they might forget to press that completed match button or what have you. But we're really excited for the season. It's going to be a great one. It's going to be I think very close throughout, as it was last year. And so please tune in, please follow us. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be posting recordings like this there, as well as other matches and other videos throughout the season. We often push our championship events that are live streamed to YouTube as well. So make sure that you're tuning in. We have a newsletter as well that goes out quarterly. So there are lots of ways to stay engaged or get engaged with college squash, and we encourage you to pick the platform or platforms that work best for you. We do have a bit of time, so I'd like to open it up for some questions. If anyone feels like we haven't covered an area that they're interested in. I see one coming in. Question about, do parents find that college squash children take more of an off season? Junior squash was more of a year-round activity. Do you feel like they have some downtime to take to themselves, say in the spring or summer?
Well, I can only speak for Jack, obviously. Jack made a concerted effort last spring to say, not that he didn't adore his teammates and he really had a wonderful first season. He said, I'm going to spend the entire off season hanging out with people that I don't know yet and doing things that I haven't done before. And I think he was very happy that he took that time at the end of the year to just to expand his horizons and meet other people on campus and do some things that he really didn't have time to do during the season. As far as training, if that's a question, certainly Jack enjoys going and getting a hit in. Maybe it's not the everyday that he has during the regular squash season, but certainly several times a week, along with his fitness routine that he would do anyway. But he doesn't choose to, play in any tournaments in the off season unless he's, there's something happening on a small scale at our home club here.
Yeah, I would say I'd be mindful that there are the levels of squash in college squash are fairly vast and different top to bottom. And so your student or player, son or daughter, could, is just willing to play during the season. And there are programs under our umbrella within our organization that sort of ascribe to that training schedule a little bit. There are others that expect a higher level of commitment, more during the year and over the summer. There are players who, of course, are playing, want to play professionally. They're trying to gain some PSA points, and so they're trying to play in the fall or the spring or the summer. And so the expectations are going to be different. It's important to be mindful of that. This is something we talk about all the time with recruiting. Is make sure when you're talking to coaches during the recruiting process, you understand ask the question, what are your expectations for off-season training? What do you have captain's practices? Do you have mandatory lift sessions in the spring? How does that all work? It's going to be different depending on who you're talking to, but it's critical to keep all of that in mind as you're looking at schools. Or even if your student is in school now, it's not too late to ask that question. Or maybe after the season's over. Go ahead, Paul.
Trinity is a Division III institution where there seems to be a different level of focus on balance. And that's why I've stayed in this division my whole career. In the out of season, whatever is done purely by the initiative of the player. We're not even permitted to see them. They come in the office and we say hi, but we can't watch them train. We can't watch them practice. I think that's a wonderful thing. And the other aspect of that is, our students study abroad. We encourage them to do that. That's part of the overall college experience. They might miss half their season, but that we're here to support them. They're not here for us. And I like that philosophy. And for the most part, I'm a consultant for UNC tennis. That's not the way it is at UNC, I can tell you that. And in college squash generally, there is still a real premium put on the balance of the experience for the student. And I think that's a wonderful part of our game.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself while we have our panel together here, or feel free to put it in the chat. We'll give another minute or so. I normally like to think if we don't have too many questions. Oh, one came in. Oh, not a question, just a nice comment. So thanks. But so the thing they'll say while you're thinking of your last questions, I think all of these folks can attest, I try and be as accessible as possible myself. We want to make sure that all of our experience is student athlete centric. We want to maximize the student athlete experience for all of our players, and the parents and their experience is a critical part of that. So if you have ideas, this is the second seminar that we've done this fall. This will probably be it while we're getting into the season, but we have the spring and then next fall as well. If you have other ideas or other things you'd like to hear about from the CSA or from specific schools or specific people, let us know, reach out. We're always glad to see if you see me out at matches, I try and get around during the season. Please come say hello and let me know how you feel like things are going. We also have an assistant commissioner, Abby Wingard, who was just hired this past spring. She's doing a great job. She's handling a lot of those marketing communications that you're seeing going out now. And she'll be at matches as well. So feel free, if you see someone with the CSA logoed gear, please make sure you go say hi. And we're always eager to hear from parents and talk and see how your student athlete experience is going as well. So without seeing any other questions, we must have done a good job, panelists. Thank you very much for joining us and for all your insights. I look forward to seeing you all around. Thanks. Shout out to Simone again and Danny Cups with the parent committee for helping to put this together and drive us forward. And I hope you all have a great night. It's now November. That means college squash competition is right around the corner. So we hope to see you all out there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great night. Take care all.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you for your
Thanks,
children.
everyone.
Thank you.